Citizens, what's up? It's President Awall here. Gonna do another card review. Last one was ATST. This one, you guys requested Ben Kenobi. These are two of the highest cost cards in the entire game. Ben Kenobi being the highest cost card in the entire game. Therefore, it is the biggest risk to drop this card, and you want to get maximum value out of it. Otherwise, it is absolutely not worth that huge 8 energy cost. Just really quick, if you're not familiar with this card, it is the unique for the Luke Skywalker leader card, and close to 1500 HP. It's decent. Attack power is okay. Movement speed's okay. It's essentially a slower moving Luke Skywalker, if you will. Does decent damage. It's pretty good. Think of it as a maybe a 4-cost version of a Wookiee warrior in and of itself, right? However, it's an 8-cost card. So where does the other 4 energy cost worth of value come from Ben Kenobi versus, say, a Wookiee warrior, for example? So that's the conversion. That's the Jedi mind trick element of this card, and it's really, really high risk. It's difficult to pull off sometimes, but if you get it, this card just completely swings the game, and it's GG instantaneously. So before we go into detail on that, I'm going to talk about how you can use Ben Kenobi in your Rebel deck, kind of what cards you need to build around it in order to make it viable. And then also I'm going to talk about, on the Empire side, how can you prevent Ben Kenobi from converting your units, and how should you think about that. So really quick, Ben Kenobi is obviously meant to synergize with Luke Skywalker. The idea is drop Kenobi, get a good conversion. Kenobi and the converted unit is going to roll down the lane. Your Luke Skywalker is rolling down the lane. Eventually, Kenobi's going to die to like a turret or something. And then your damage increases by 20% for 30 seconds. That is a significant amount of time. And your damage goes very, very high. I mean, you have a very high attack speed as Luke Skywalker. So the idea is, with the conversion, it's all about a big counter push. And then Luke just goes ham on that turret and takes your turret down like that. This has happened to me a number of times, and I've lost many, many games against Lukes that pulled off an amazing conversion. Then Kenobi dies, and they continue to just go straight at you with this all-in push type of strategy. So what kind of cards are you going to replace? What kind of things are you going to sacrifice in lieu of putting a Ben Kenobi into your deck? And this is actually a very tough decision, because the deck you see on the screen right here, this is a very similar deck to what you see in the top 100 players on the ladder using. You've got all of your basic tools that you need to get stuff done, right? You've got your secondary tanking option, your main tanking option, you've got your ability to take down ATSTs instantaneously, you've got Marauders, which are a nice damaging option to go up against ATSTs, you've also got a Grenadier here to do nice wave clear, and you've got nice supplemental damage with Rebel Troopers. You've basically got everything that you need with this deck on screen. And then you've got Stun Grenade as well, so you can stun enemy heroes and take them out. So if you're going to replace anything that I kind of have listed here, I would consider removing the Troopers or remove the Marauders, and then go ahead and put Kenobi into that deck. Now notice what happens instantly. The cost of this deck skyrockets, and you are now at a 4.1 average cost deck. Obviously, Ben being there, you're just going to pull him out in only clutch moments, obviously kind of skews that number. It is optional to put Ben instead of Polar Bear with a minigun, so that you have lots and lots and lots of lower cost options to go along with Ben. And this deck that you see on the screen right now is something I've used personally, and it allows you to have a lot of speed with two cost unit cards, 2 3-cost unit cards, and 1 stun card, so that you can quickly react if, say, your Kenobi doesn't work out. Cool. So Kenobi, you drop him down, he goes out there, he's going to try to convert something, hopefully you get some value out of it. What are you hoping to actually convert? Well, your best conversion option is going to be the MTV7 light vehicle. Like I mentioned earlier, you've got about 4 or 5 energy costs worth of value you need to get out of the card, so you need to convert something big. As an Empire player, I'm sure you guys have experienced getting your light vehicle converted. It is devastating. This light vehicle, even with half health, if it gets converted and turned around on you, there's a Luke Skywalker in your lane, there's now a light vehicle in your lane, and there's a Kenobi in your lane, and they're all bearing down on you. 3 tanky cards that do decent damage coming straight at you. That is a big, big problem. Light vehicle is very vulnerable to conversion. It's so big, it usually fits within that area of effect that the Kenobi conversion does. And then you've also got the other option, which is huge, which is to convert Imperial heavy gunners. Generally, the conversion is going to happen in a relatively small area on the map. So the gunners are usually really close to each other. These 3-count units right here, in total, these units do over 600 damage per second. If you can convert those, and those just immediately turn around and start shooting the Empire enemy that you're up against, it's just devastating. It's just totally devastating. Those are the 2 highest yield conversions that you can get, in my opinion. I've also seen some conversions happen here on Zabarak Assassins. If you're able to pull that off, good to you. Obviously very difficult because they're stealth, but if you're able to convert those, that is huge. Yet another 5 cost option there. What you want to generally avoid when you're trying to convert Imperial units over is you're trying to avoid converting small fodder units. So you don't really want to convert stormtroopers. You can convert a sand trooper, it's okay, but you want to go for bigger stuff if you can get it. And the bladesman, okay, it's an okay conversion, but it's not the best. You'll take it. Maybe it's a wash, but you probably aren't going to be too far ahead with that conversion. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the conversion, the Jedi mind tricks or whatever you want to call it, uses the Force to convert enemies, is you can't convert uniques. I've tried. You also can't convert certain other units that are generally like an automaton or like a vehicle or automated or whatever. So examples of that include, I don't believe you can convert a probe droid. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. And you cannot convert an AT-ST walker, for example. Or you wouldn't be able to convert, say, a unique like TK7193. So that's a big reason why you see in a lot of Empire decks, they have AT-ST in there as opposed to the MTV-7 light vehicle, is because it's not vulnerable to this card that essentially hard counters it, and that is a major factor. So if you're going up against a lot of Luke players with Kenobis, just you're definitely going to want to swap out your AT-ST with your light vehicle and just instantly swap that out. It's no longer vulnerable to that conversion, and you're not going to have those random bogus losses. And one thing to keep in mind is those folks that have a Kenobi in their deck, generally they're going to be lower or mid-tier. Occasionally they're higher tier players, but generally they're lower to mid-tier players. They're experimenting with it. They see big results, but it's not quite as consistent. So when you lose to players that have Kenobi, in my experience, the majority of the time they're like 42-point losses because they're going to be kind of more starting players. And that kind of leads me to my next point. Generally speaking, if you want more consistent results in 1v1, I recommend avoiding Ben Kenobi in its current state, in the way the meta is right now, in the way balance is right now. There are simply not enough big conversions that you can pull off on an Empire enemy that make it worth having that card in your deck. I mentioned 2 examples, essentially. The light vehicle as well as the heavy gunners. Maybe you can get a pick on the assassins, I doubt it. That's about it. In terms of conversions, that makes it really worth it. There's nothing else here that is really worth converting over to your side. And it's difficult to get something like Imperial Jump Troopers because they're so spread out and they jump away. You might miss it. Your positioning might be off. So for that reason, guys, as cool as Kenobi is, I would recommend putting him into your 2v2 deck as a Luke Skywalker, simply because there's a higher probability that you'll be able to convert a lot of units in that little area of effect of where the conversion occurs. 1v1s, it's just way too high risk. But in 2v2s, often you'll see an entire lane of just a giant wave of units heading towards your lane or your ally's lane or the mid, and you drop a Kenobi in there, you can get a fat conversion with tons of units and get lots and lots of value out of this card. And it's a higher probability the value occurs beyond his base stats of his HP and his damage that he's able to lay down. Make sense? So for 1v1, high risk, don't recommend it. For 2v2, 2 thumbs way up. Kenobi is just total rock star in 2v2. Cool, I hope that helped you guys make a decision around whether you should use Ben Kenobi or not. It's a really awesome card. Personally, I would like to see the card dropped in its energy cost. I would like to see his HP dropped a bit as well, and I'd like the kind of conversion and how it works to be more clear. If you drop Kenobi down and he's like attacking people already with his lightsaber, he won't convert. You have to drop him behind enemy lines before he gets attacked, then he converts, then he's going to move into battle. The way his conversion works just seems wonky. It seems unpredictable, and if they could find a way to make it more predictable, like maybe you could activate it or something, then that makes sense. Otherwise, this is an 8-cost card that you have very little control over how his conversion element of it works, which just makes it really, really high risk, and risk equals losses, generally speaking, over the long run. Thank you so much for watching. Click my avatar to subscribe to my channel for daily Star Wars Force Arena content. Thank you to everybody who's turned on notifications. Love you, Notification Squad. 2 videos over here. Click them. Why? Because they're amazing. Because I made them. Adios, amigos.